Greetings again, everybody, and welcome back to Dark Souls 2. We're back in the Lost Bastille, the bonfire right after the ruined sentinels, and we're going to go on after a second, but first, I need to pick up this thing that I forgot. I know I said that it picked it up off screen, but that was a lie. We now have the priest chime, which is slightly better than our sacred chime right now. It has higher lightning damage and better lightning scaling, which for miracles of course means that it's just flat out better. If we also imbue it with lightning, it'll be even better. Generally when it comes to catalyst, you'll just want to look out for the damage type it does and how well the scaling is. For miracles it's lightning, for sorcery it's magic, for hexes it's dark, and for pyromancy it's fire. Though for pyromancy you don't exactly have a choice of catalyst. There's just two types of pyromancy flame. The regular and the dark one actually just improves in power as you grow more hollow. But yeah, the whole catalyst thing, most people tend to make it a little more complicated in their minds than it actually is, but it's really simple. It can only get problematic if you want to use a catalyst to cast sorceries and hexes, because then imbuing it with either lightning magic and or dark is not going to be possible. So it's going to have a strength for one type of magic. And yeah, we've already been in this area, only we've been downstairs. But of course we don't want to go down there again. This is where I died against those mummy people that explode. The one that would have dropped the Wanderer set for me had I not died. And oh hey, look at this. We are now in here. We have actually seen this metal gate from the other side. And had we not jumped across to the other roof, we could have just gone up the tower and we would have ended up here. Now, what could be behind this door? That's rather interesting. A lot of the time you will find messages here that just say skeleton, however there is not one here right now. So, let's do it. Let's read a message. I didn't explain this yet, I think, but if you read a message, you just can pick from a couple predetermined phrases and words. It works fairly well, but a lot of the messages you see are composed by people who are either not aware of their options, or they do their best to create something that is completely and utterly incomprehensible. And there it is, skeleton, exclamation mark. And through that metal gate and that other one right behind it, which are both opened by this one switch of course, we will be back where we left off when we did our little New Game Plus venture to skip the Ruined Sentinels, which of course by now I actually have beaten. Not that I would have had to, we could have just not done it, but I did. And we already know this room, we're now back in familiar territory. So let's just hurry back up to where we would find Straight were I to actually revive him, which I'm not gonna. At least not right now. Don't plan on using any boss weapons on this character. At least not at this specific point in time. And now we actually just need to go through that other metal gate, which will lead us to an entirely new area in which we will fight our third old one. This old one area is relatively short. Even compared to the other ones, to Black Gulch for instance, which was really short. And, well, to be fair, Iron Keep was not really short, it's a fairly long area, it's just that the second part, which happens to be the part with the old Iron King, is pretty short. And yes, there's people with bows or crossbows up there, so naturally you will want to just run in order to make your way to Sinner's Rise. And once up that ladder, we will find one of the most shitty bonfires in the entire game. I mean, the one by Straight is already pretty shitty, but this one is even more so. Those guys are only not outside because they spotted us and shot at us while we were approaching. So, yeah, once we're at the bonfire, they will be back. Of course, if you know what to do, you can just run. They will not be able to actually follow you. This is the best way to do it. Either that, or you just rest at the bonfire and kill them repeatedly until they have despawned. It takes about roughly something between 10 and 20, most people say 15 killings to actually make them disappear for good. Of course, you also get a couple souls from killing them, but not that many, honestly. But yeah, whoever placed this bonfire here and the enemies next to it is either a complete dick or a complete idiot. I'm not sure which, but yeah, there's 2 more bonfires in this game where you're attacked basically immediately by enemies. The other one being one with Straight, and then there is one in an area that we have not explored yet. Just turned human here again because we actually want to summon Lucatiel for this upcoming boss fight. This is the last fight we can summon her for, and since we need to summon her for a total of 3 bosses, and one of them bugged out, this is our last chance. And once we summon her for the last time, eventually we will meet her again, and then we will be able to get her stuff. Which we could also get by killing her, but this is, I guess, better. Also, you get an achievement if that's your kind of thing. But yeah, of course it's best to just clear the area before summon Lucatiel, because otherwise she might just die on her way. And even if you clear the area, there's still a chance for her to die just because she just runs off some narrow walkway and falls to her death. She used to be more suicidal in earlier patches, but they kind of fixed that. In fact, pretty much every NPC phantom was useless when the game originally came out. By the time the PC version was released, of course, this was no longer the case, because they had significantly increased the stats of all the NPC phantoms, so they can actually hold their own against the bosses, at least for a little bit, and not die horribly all the time. Those big dudes, by the way, they can be parried. I'm just not doing it because I'm not that confident in my parrying skills, just to be honest here. Yeah, this is a really well hidden, really well hidden illusory wall, or rather hidden passage. Gives you the Northern Ritual Band, which decreases your health by a good amount, and in return you actually do get more of your spell uses. So if I were feeling more gutsy, I could just use that ring to decrease my health and I would have more lightning spears. Which at this point seems like it would make them much more useful because I'd be able to use them more frequently. But I don't honestly know how many spell uses I would get for that. Well worth to consider in the future though. And curse the weird range. One of the reasons I don't like the maze is its range. It is fairly limited, and in this case it made it so I actually got hit and my hit completely whiffed. Now that part is kind of hellish. Well, if this is your first playthrough and you don't know what's coming. Because if you were to walk down there in the water, well, you would probably be surrounded by those exploding mummies relatively quickly. And also, if this is New Game Plus, right here by the stairs there would be a red phantom one, which you can't see immediately, but it will aggro and follow you up if you run, like I always do. Honestly, as far as boss runs go, this is relatively simple. You just run through the area, and then you run more. just the first time around it's probably better to just clear the area out. So you can open all the doors you either need switches for, or the bestie key, because yeah, this is actually the reason we got the bestie key. There's several doors using the bestie key in this here area. And I was just afraid that mummies would charge out and attack me, because I've had that happen to me before. And fighting more than one of them at the same time is kind of bad, as you can imagine. Especially if they fall down in the water and you can't see them anymore. Of course you can lock onto them, but not being able to see them, if there's several of them, might still cause you to panic. I normally just skip all of those rooms down here. There really isn't anything in them that I absolutely need. In fact, most of them are devoid of anything but death. Just those mummies. The one opposite of us though has an item. But I always forget what it is, because really, I skipped this part and it has nothing in it that's really good. Though I suppose a Ferris Lockstone will be useful to you if you have none left over. And we don't even need to open this part, because, well, see those ladders? If we had gone the upper route, we could have just used the bestie key to open the doors up there. But now, let's go over to New Game Plus. Those red dudes up there, they're only there on New Game Plus. To take them out more quickly, I'm just gonna use weapon buffs. I went a little bit into weapon buffs last time. They're just basically really good. No matter what weapon type you use, if you have the option to buff your weapon, you should do it, especially for bosses. And there just are a few weapons that you can't buff. And this is kind of something that I completely missed on my first playthrough. You can set this on fire. Now what does it do? Well, you might have seen that fog gate. It leads us to the boss room. And lighting that up actually puts a little light source in the boss room, which allows us to lock onto the boss from a larger range, which is actually pretty helpful, though not essential. But if this is your first time around, you tend to just stay away from the bosses for a little bit to see what they can do, and it's really useful in that case. On New Game Plus though, for reasons we're gonna see, it's also very, very useful to have more light in the room. The fact that there's black liquid on the floor is supposed to clue you in on the fact that you can do that, by the way. It's better than the windmills, much better. So, let's do this. The Lost Sinner is a boss that gave me a lot of trouble when I played the game initially. By now though, I could swear that they nerfed her considerably. Either that or I've just become that much better. I think that she attacks way less and it takes a longer time for her to actually jump away after a successful or unsuccessful attack. Overall, her attacks are very straightforward. There are no weird tricks she pulls. She just uses her sword. She swings it left to right or overhead, or she stabs. Sometimes she jumps and, well, yeah, that's what she does when she does that. But there's no odd tricks to her, and that I can appreciate. However, on New Game Plus, well, there's something extra there. Yeah, that. After a certain amount of time, 2 pyromancers will actually jump out of those holes we can see in the wall. they make the fight much more complicated. Because the Lost Sinner is fairly aggressive and you have to deal with 2 more targets. And it's very advisable that you take them out first. To make that more easy, I tend to bring ranged weapons or ranged modes of attack. In this case here, the Evelyn, because if a full salvo hits, it's basically a kill in 2 hits, or rather 2 salvos, not 2 hits. But a lot of the time one of the bolts might miss, if you're unlucky even 2 or perhaps 3, but it does the job. But yeah, due to the challenging nature of this fight, I hope that you do forgive me for bringing along a very familiar build, which you've actually already seen in the first episode. It is how I went through New Game and New Game Plus with this character. Just a great sword, a bow, and in this case even an Evelyn, which I only use for occasions such as this. And some hexes and pyromancies depending on how I feel. But yeah, aside from those 2 adds, the fight is not too challenging, at least to me anymore. As I said though, first time around it gave me a lot of trouble. At this point though, I find her really easy. I don't know if it's just because I got her rhythm down or because she's nerfed. Probably both in some way, I'm not entirely sure. A big part of what makes this fight difficult is that all of those involved in an attack with a different rhythm. The Sinner is really fast, so you can basically rely on her attacking you at any given point in time. But you might also have to actually dodge fireballs and whatnot, and take a hit from her, which is actually better than taking a hit from both, in case you couldn't tell. In the intro cinematic for this fight, you might have noticed a small bug crawling inside the Lost Sinner's eye. The idea is basically that the bug is actually the Lost Sinner just controlling that body. This would be reminiscent of the fight against the Bed of Chaos, which was basically a tiny bug controlling a big tree-like structure that was also made of fire. This is of course going to be a little more relevant in the lore video that will accompany this video. For now though, we need to focus a little more on what's at hand here. Thankfully, we were already able to take out one of the pyromancers. The second one isn't so hard to kill anymore, mainly because you have one less target to worry about. So let's just do it really quick. Even if I get hit by the Sinner, it's gonna be totally worth it because I can take a hit. Hell, I can take 2. Finally, now the rest of the fight should be relatively easy and not as tedious as what we just saw. Once you've taken care of the pyromancers or you're still a new game where they don't show up, this fight is actually pretty fun. The pyromancers really only add to the tedium in my opinion. A lot of the time in this game when they throw extra enemies at you, it only really serves to slow the gameplay down, not make it more interesting. But yes, I'm sure that somewhere out there there's someone who strongly disagrees with me and really likes the fact that those 2 extra enemies show up and that they really make the fight much better. But that doesn't really matter. All I see is that the fight is now much more fun to me. And the Lost Sinner's HP seem to go down relatively quickly at this point. Even though it's a relatively straightforward fight and it's not a big and imposing figure we're fighting, out of the old ones, this is probably my favorite one. It's one of the few humanoid enemy boss battles that the game actually nailed. There's way too many other humanoid bosses in this game, and a lot of them are just kind of meh. This one however is great, even though sadly it is now over. And on New Game Plus only, we get the Old Witch's Soul. So now let's have a quick look at this arena. It's kind of interesting. There's writings all over the place. But of course we can't make any of it out. Ah well, let's just move on. We about deserved some rest now. Opposed to the other old ones, we don't really get Sublime Bone Dust this time around. but a fragrant branch of yore, which might be useful to you. And this here is the third Primal bonfire. And yeah, this is it for the main gameplay section, but we're still gonna have a look at the Lost Sinner's boss weapons, so stick around for that if you care. An ultra-great sword forged from the soul of the lost sinner. Its blade saps the life of its wielder. The true nature of the sword is unknown, even to the lost sinner herself. Those who choose the sword will share the burden of the lost sinner's misdeeds. And as the description lets us know, attacking with it actually kind of damages us, which is bad. But it has another hidden feature. It has negative scaling with your sin level. Now, sin level is something that I haven't actually talked about yet. Essentially, if you invade someone as a red phantom, you become a sinner, you get +1 to your sin level. And once your sin level reaches a certain level, you are considered a sinner or a wretch if it gets high enough. Which of course is kind of bad, because that now means that you're gonna be invaded by blue phantoms. However, in the case of the Lost Sinner sword, it also means that it will get weaker the more you have sinned. So if you are a good boy or girl, this weapon will be more useful to you. Even though it's not really useful to me at this point. I have never sinned on this character and it's still fairly weak. To be fair though, like other boss weapons, this one's not upgraded. It might do amazing things once it's upgraded to +5, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you again next time.